Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, back from my emergency health-related break, and back onto the grind to get finished with the reviews of Eurovision 2019. 5 songs left to go, and the first of those 5 comes to us from Russia, who, they certainly know how to tickle a fandom. That sure is a thing you can say. So yes, it's been an open secret for the entire Eurovision season, basically, even before it was formally announced, that once again Russia will be represented by one Sergey Vyacheslavovich Lazarev. Russian names are difficult, I apologise. And, well, we were told early on that they were planning a ballad this year as opposed to the style of music that we got when Sergey last took part of the contest. And that's what we got, and the fandom were still disappointed. Anyway, the song is called Scream, it's completely in English, music by Philip Kirkorov and Dimitris Kontopoulos, and lyrics by Sharon Vaughan. So, a completely all-star cast in terms of singers and songwriters, and basically, Russia kind of wants to go for gold this year, and it shows, to be perfectly honest. So, well, let's see how well they're doing in that department, shall we? I won't lie to you, lovely people, I personally was not super excited by the announcement that Sergey would be returning for Russia this year, knowing how adamant, let's say, his fans can be about his stuff. Even before I heard the song, I had a feeling it was going to be hyped to the moon and back, and that hype was going to lead it to inflated success on the Eurovision scoreboard, partly because of a certain loud group of fans who just like how Sergey looks, and who remember the wet dreams they had after You Are the Only One in 2016, so naturally I went into this song with an unhealthily cynical mindset. But I'd like to think that I still came out the other side with some valid and fair points, and not just vitriol for vitriol's sake. Not that I wouldn't be completely justified in taking that stance, just to balance out the more insufferable fans. I'm not saying they're all like that, of course, but before I dig myself any deeper into that can of worms, let's just start with my review of the actual song instead of worrying about what might be lurking out there, shall I? Well, obviously and unsurprisingly, for one thing, we know for a fact that this song will be carried across live at least as well as in the music video, being, as Sergey is, such an accomplished performer. He's done Eurovision before, as well as a bunch of other live stuff internationally, so we know that even with extreme staging or intense emotional duress, he's still going to be able to deliver the song, and with a song as brooding and intense as this one, that is an absolutely incredibly important aspect in order to make the song actually come across well and believably on stage. For that matter, if his last foray into Eurovision is anything to judge by, I anticipate this song having eye-catching live staging as well. Probably not quite as over-the-top as You Are the Only Ones, to the point that one of the UK commentators said it looked desperate, and honestly, having seen it live and in person, I completely get where he was coming from. But no, rather, I suspect this one will have a bit more understated but still heavily stylized, intense and mood-appropriate kind of staging, and that will only help sell the song further, because if they oversell it, then that will be to the song's detriment. I think they're going to strike a good balance here. But really though, make no mistake, the whole song, and not just its live portrayal, was clearly written to excite from the outset, and it seems to get the job done quite nicely in that regard, judging by its fan reception at large. Further to that though, the Russian delegation probably knows that no matter what they send, it'll inevitably draw comparisons to You Are the Only One, and so they've deliberately made this song as different from that as possible, so any comparisons that people can make will just be brushed off as totally incidental. And in a year where a certain other country is kind of infamously ripping themselves off beat for beat, that's going to stand out even more as a respectable point, as a point of integrity. You know, it's going to be obvious that they're not copying themselves, they're trying something different. And one more specific note, when it comes to comparing this song to Sergey's previous outing, one of my biggest complaints with You Are the Only One was that the lyrics were such a hot mess of meaningless drivel. This year, they've taken the writing process so much more seriously, and it shows. They've got so much more, I don't want to call it, like, poetry to the lyrics, because I've used that word too much this year, but, like, they use much more carefully considered rhetoric, I suppose one could say. The lyrics actually kind of mean something this time around, instead of just, hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the Sergey jumped over the wall. so I appreciate that they actually bothered to make an effort here. But having said that though, particularly in praising the lyrics just now, the lyrics don't actually impress me. Like, yeah, they are much better written than You Are the Only Ones, but it still really feels not quite right. This time it feels like they're overcompensating. Like, okay, it is stylistically appropriate that the words remind me of a high fantasy novel series, but have you all ever actually read the Eragon series by Christopher Paolini? The lyrics here remind me of his writing style, bearing in mind he wrote that series when he was 16, where there are just one too many flowery worded metaphors that kind of kill the mood. Like, it just tastes like they're trying a bit too hard to impress, to the point of forgetting what actual human words sound like. Your mileage may vary there, of course. I am speaking as someone who spent most of his academic life studying language and literature, and being the son of a mother who holds a degree in the very same subject. I'm prone to reading too much into lyrics and literature and this sort of thing, so I appreciate I may be the only one finding fault here. Now, to be a bit less esoteric, to turn my attention to a point that other people have suggested to me, I feel like this song is kind of really linear, in that there's not much of an urge to listen to it more than once. Like, you hear it once, and that's it. You get the point. There's no higher meaning that you'll understand a second time through. There's no particular urge. There's nothing to be gained from hearing it a second time. And if you were to hear it on repeat, or to hear it multiple times in the same, say, 15 minutes, it would start to get pretty boring pretty quickly. Sure, at Eurovision that's exactly the opposite of a problem, because most people only hear the song once anyway, but surely if you want a song to win, you're going to want to hear it multiple times by default? Again, tastes will vary in that department inevitably. One last super personal thing, meanwhile, I can't articulate this quite properly, but I feel like this song kind of pulls back too hard when it goes for more quiet moments. Like, towards the end, the entire song just cuts to silence for like a solid second, despite how much it had been building up to that point. And instead of sounding like intentional juxtaposition to put more emphasis on Sergey's vocals, it just feels like they slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting a squirrel on the musical road ahead, or something that makes a bit more sense than that metaphor. Similarly, there are parts of the song earlier on than that where, again, the focus is very much on Sergey holding on like longer, more dramatic notes while the music kind of swirls and swells around him. Except the backing track doesn't really feel like it gets to that level of development where that kind of effect would actually work until literally the final refrain. Again, that could be total overthought on my part, but I've been reassured that I'm not the only one who feels that way here, and with a song as controversial and divisive as this, I feel like having someone have my back here is kind of an important detail in making sure that I'm getting valid points across. Now though, to put my feelings into numbers on a scale that everyone can hate no matter what language they speak, right? I know how strongly some people feel about this song, so if I give it anything less than a personal score of 10, then they'll accuse me of being an unreasonable hater who's just looking for excuses to drag this song through the mud. Well, I assure you that's not what's happening here, so take this 6 out of 10 and deal with it. I appreciate the composition, and I like the fact that the eponymous scream in the lyrics refers to the 1,000 words that a single tear can speak, rather than a literal scream of fear or anger or frustration or whatever. The simple issue is that this song doesn't make me personally, on a personal subjective level, feel anything. Like, the song is going for emotional appeal, and while it nails that with some people, it misses the mark with me, and by quite a wide margin. And before you say anything, no, the fact that it's representing Russia has nothing to do with that, and the fact that it's Sergey singing it has nothing to do with that. Control your damn insecurities, fam. See, as a juror, I would be more inclined towards an 8 out of 10 here. This song really does show Sergey's diversity as an artist, as well as his ability to perform something with a bit more heart than a song that just presents him as eye candy singing chewing gum for the ears. He brings the right amount of drama and gravity to a song of this tone, and the song itself feels like an actual composition, and not just something that was written to pander to the broadest demographic possible. I think the Russian delegation knows exactly what they're doing with this entry as a complete package, so you can be quite sure that they're going to put on one hell of a show in Tel Aviv, and I look forward to that. It's just the studio version of the song isn't for me personally, but it's for the audience that they know they're going to find, and that's valid and okay. But I'm getting dangerously close to talking about meta strategies here, which is best saved for just after this next screen wipe. Right, so yes, strategies. Is this a good move for the Russian delegation as a whole? Honestly, I'm kind of conflicted. If we're talking about just improving raw results year on year, then yes, this is a much safer bet to do well than Yulia last year, which was, as we saw, a little bit of a gamble, stylistically speaking. The thing is, what has me so divided is that, well, on one hand, how much integrity is there to a country that's so blatantly dropping everything with the aim of getting a good result at the expense of all else? But, on the other hand, isn't that the point of the whole show? If you're not trying to win, why are you here? So, Russia's doing it right in that regard? It's so easy to be cynical and full of distrust for everything at this point, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here and just say that pleasing the fans by sending Sergey is their way for making up for the rockiness of the past couple of years, with no disrespect to Yulia, because her songs were good, they were just much more of a gamble than this. And I suppose in risking less with something that's bound to do better, I guess that's a good thing, because that's kind of the point of the show, you're there to do well. That being said, on the subject of whether or not Sergey will qualify, it's not even a question. Sergey's fans are utterly legion in number, and we know that he can perform the hell out of any given song, so there's no risk of him scaring newcomers away on the night either. Similarly, the song is written in such a way that it covers all of the bases that You Are the Only One missed with the juries last time, so that will give it a much more solid backup on that side of the scoreboard. Bearing in mind that the more vocal fans have expressed slight disappointment that this song is more jury-friendly than just a blatant copy of You Are the Only One, I question whether or not it could actually win the whole show, bearing in mind what I've said before about the danger of having expectations versus reality. But I guess it's a contender for the top 10, possibly the top 5. That's not where I would put it personally, but that is just me. I recognise that. My opinion isn't necessarily reflective of the opinions of everyone else. So, I'm going to turn to everyone else. How about you? How do you feel about this song? There is only one person on the planet who can tell you what you think, and that's you. You are the only one. Haha! Reference. But yes, as always, the comments are open unless I've had to close them due to toxicity, but again, that's not been an issue so far this year. Please don't be the person to change that. And of course, there's the iCard in the corner of the video. You can vote on the poll. Do you like the song? Do you not? Do you feel neutral? That is valid too. And, well, I have nothing else to say other than Sergey and Team Russia. Good luck in Israel, and hopefully you'll bring one hell of a show, and I expect that you will. So, see you then.